What is going on, PuckHouse listeners? This is Rick Adams. We got Jack Farris right alongside me. And the Carolina Hurricanes are your Stanley Cup champions, folks. Jack, what do you got to say?
What's up, listeners? Jack Farris here. Rick, thank you for the intro as always. And we do have a Stanley Cup champion, the Carolina Hurricanes, ladies and gentlemen. Jack's pick was not right. I had the Vegas Golden Knights winning it, but I did say cannot, count out Carolina at your own peril because they're a damn good hockey team, and they executed last night. Last night was clinical. They just it was almost a boring game to watch. Like I wanted Vegas to get back in it, and there's nothing else really to say. I mean, we could talk about all the little intricacies of it, but they just put on an amazing display of their type of hockey. Their system was in place last night, and like I said, it was clinical. There was no space out there. Bussy played unbelievable. The stick breaking up plays, Jacob Slavin, Olympic gold medalist for the United States, and a Stanley Cup champion within a 6-month span. I mean, that doesn't get better than that, right? So just the intensity and resilience this team played with, I got to almost apologize to them because I was just like, they're a great regular season team. I've said that for years. And they proved me wrong that they are much more than a regular season team. I think we even spoke about it like a couple podcasts back, Rick. We were kind of like, yeah, you know what? They swept Philly. They swept Ottawa. Ottawa's good, but whatever. Like, wait until they see like a real team with superstars and, see what happened. Vegas was a real team with superstars. They won a cup a few years back, and Carolina got it done. So, congratulations to Carolina Hurricanes. Brind A'mour, incredible coach, wins it with the team in 2006, I believe. I hope I'm right about that year. Now he wins it as coach. The amount of players on this team that really stepped up to the plate. Taylor Hall. I was thinking about Taylor Hall, Rick. Just the guy was drafted first overall by the Edmonton Oilers, right? So he's a first overall draft pick. Ends up going to New Jersey Devils during that Adam Larkin trade, if you remember that, years ago. Wins a Hart Trophy with the New Jersey Devils. I think he had, I forgot how many points he had. Was it 99 or 100? Hit incredible year. Hart Trophy with New Jersey. Doesn't re-sign with New Jersey. Bounces around. Goes to Buffalo. Oh, no. He went to Arizona and then Buffalo and then Boston. And then Carolina picks him up. And everyone's just like, he's like an afterthought. This guy was an integral part of this Stanley Cup win. And I think he's the first player, I believe, I'm going to look it up, and maybe Rick can look it up while I'm talking here, to be drafted first overall, win a Hart Trophy, and then a Stanley Cup with 3 different teams. He didn't do that with one team. There was 3 different teams, so pretty crazy story. Yeah, man, just Canes got it done, and I think now you have to look at the Carolina Hurricanes through a different lens because they are, they're not just that suffocating team that's hard to play against in the regular season and comes in first place and then sputters out in the playoffs. They're a legit champion now, and you got to really look at their GM and the guy Tulsky and how great of a job he's done with the analytics and taking some big swings and some gambles on players and good contracts, like really managing cap space the right way, and then, Brind A'mour's system really getting it done.
Yeah, Jack, that's awesome for Brind A'mour and the whole Carolina Hurricane squad there. It's fascinating, actually, that he won the Cup in 2006 with them after the lockout year, and it's like it's mind-blowing, to be honest, that he comes back, coaches with them, and wins it in 2026, 20 years later. It's like bittersweet. It's an amazing story. Brandon Bussy playing lights out, amazing story right there. Bring up Hall, amazing story. It's just all these stories and everything, and it really is amazing that it just all comes together. And just look at them now, riding off to the sunset with the Stanley Cup, hoisted it last night. You just got to wonder what happens next with them and who they re-sign and all that type of stuff. Do they keep the same core together? You gotta keep it going. Is it like a little dynasty that is brewing there, and everybody just re-sign, run it back? What happens now is players ask for more money, all that stuff. We could do a whole other breakdown about that, but that's my whole my whole outlook now while they ride off into the sunset with the cup and do their whole run around and parade and stuff like that. Um, bring up Taylor Hall, man. It's amazing. He drafted by Edmonton, you know. I remember again. I think we said on another pod like him and Sagan. Like I remember playing franchise mode, and, like picking them first. Trading for the first overall pick and getting them, and like they're these guys are the next studs, and just amazing to see careers grow and time evolve and all that stuff. But yeah, it's you bring up that whole got the Hart, Stanley Cup champ. What was the other thing? 3 different teams. It's amazing. No, I just looked it up.
First overall at Edmonton.
First overall with Edmonton. Saw that.
Hart Trophy with New Jersey Devils. And then he was obviously Stanley Cup.
First player to get selected first overall, win the Hart, Stanley Cup for 3 different teams. That's gotta love those little fun stats like that.
Yeah.
Love that.
It's incredible, yeah. Yeah, Rick, well said. It's incredible, and like I said, it's almost the old saying of like you either win or you learn. It's like Taylor Hall is a prime example of that, because I'm sure, he signed a big contract with Edmonton. He was first overall, right? He had some years with them where like they couldn't break through, they couldn't really get into the playoffs, or they couldn't, they're getting bounced out in the first round early on in his career, and he goes to New Jersey and like doesn't sign with them, like really wanted to be on a winning team. Like I'm sure he could have just taken a step back and been like, you know what, maybe it's time to hang them up. Like, not that he's super old, but he goes to a system in Carolina where it would have been fine for him to be a complimentary player and not really be a such a huge part of the team, I guess. And he forced his way into that. Like he's a prime example of like a player that's what he wants. He wants to win, and he made it happen. It wasn't he didn't chase money necessarily, or yeah, it's what, Rick. The other interesting thing that you brought up too is like, is this going to turn into a little dynasty? To keep the team together, and a lot of good teams stay together unless there's cap implications. Like you see a lot of teams lose players because they can't afford to re-sign them in the hard cap world in the NHL, right? So I think what we'll see with Carolina is I believe they have about like $12 million in cap space, and all of their guys are locked in. I think Hall is still on a their fourth line's locked in. Jackson Blake didn't even start his 8-year extension of like if you want to look it up, I believe it's like $6 million a year. Stankoven has like a $5 million and change 8-year contract extension kicking in next year. Aho is locked up. Not sure about Martinook. I think Gostisbehere is an unrestricted free agent. Blake, Stankoven are locked in. I knew that. Aho, Svechnikov are locked in. Bussy is locked in. I think Bussy's making like $1.6 million or something like that. Incredible. We got to talk more about Bussy too, because I was looking into him a bit. I think we mentioned him in the last podcast. He was signed by Boston after playing in college for Michigan, and he played incredible in the AHL for Providence for them. They let him go. There was a numbers game. For whatever reason, Boston's, talent identification team, whatever you want to call it, their scouts, they let Bussy walk. He signed with Florida. The Panthers signed him after winning that cup last summer, right? 1-year deal. He doesn't make the team with Florida. They have Tarasov and Bobrovsky, obviously. Goes on waivers, and Carolina claims him. No one thinks anything of it, right? Now this guy's helping them win a Stanley Cup championship. I read something that he, while he was in college and between college and the AHL, and like he was, I think, with Providence, but like not their starter yet. He was like working at Chipotle part-time as he was like, trying to get into the pro level. I mean, he's just grinding it out to get there, like doing anything that he could do to get there. Really incredible story. It just goes to show that like the margins of like your life, you could compare it to real life too, not just professional sports, but in professional sports, the margins are so slim. Like he could have been sent down to Florida's AHL team, and I'm sure he would have done well there and had a shot, but who knows what would have happened, right? Like they may have never called him up in Florida because they have 2 starting goalies. They got their 2 guys. So he gets claimed from Carolina, and it's like just really seizing the opportunity that he got. That's just the definition of it when I look at him. Very impressed, and congrats to him because that's a truly amazing story. So
yeah, and it just goes to show, Jack, that the general manager of the Hurricanes knows exactly what he's doing there, and that's why they got the victory on the season here. What is it, Eric Tulsky? His name? Eric Tulsky there. I know you got some breakdowns, some crazy breakdowns of his key moves and additions, flipping Rantanen, what was that, last season, stuff like that. Not to put you on the spot. We could come back to that because I want to talk about and emphasize Rick's picks real quick because that was crazy. Rick's picks. I said Mark Stone, Jordan Staal, bam, game 4. Bam. My head was hitting the ceiling.
Hey, Rick, yeah, you know what? I should have tailed you on that one, but I didn't, unfortunately. But that was a good pick. Yeah, as far as Tulsky goes, first of all, Eric Tulsky is an incredibly smart human being. Like, never mind pro sports. I read a bit about him. He's Harvard graduate in chemistry and physics, and just like very smart guy. He was a blogger, a big hockey fan. So he was in a totally different, stratosphere, different industry, obviously, but very educated and smart dude. But, his love of sports brought him here, basically, and when you talk about the moves he's made, like, I don't know, you look at Carolina, what does everyone say about Carolina? That they don't have a superstar. And I would argue they still don't. Like, they don't have, like, you go against Vegas, they have superstars. Mitchell Marner, Jack Eichel are 2 superstars. They're stars. Like, people know who they are. For Carolina, it's like the definition of team. They have good players, some very good players, but they don't have one superstar. They don't have a McDavid carrying them into the playoffs. It's the 4th line, the Jankowskis, the Keandre Millers playing well at the right time, like Chatfield. Just these, it's every line scoring, every line grinding. No one's mailing it in ever. Every shift's 100%. It starts with Brind A'mour. The guy's in incredible shape. If you've seen him, yeah, Rod the Body. If you see him lifting the Stanley Cup, he's shredded. He could probably, he's probably in the gym with his players doing the same workouts. They probably respect that. It's not like he's some like fat older coach that never played in the NHL. It's like he might know a lot about hockey, be a smart guy, but hey, like, this guy's never played. You don't have the same sort of level of respect for him naturally, right? Rod, you do. I think it starts with him, but it starts with Rod, but just Tulsky's moves. It's like they wanted to go get a superstar, so they make the deal for Rantanen, right? They gave up Marty Netchis, who borderline star. He's not really a superstar, I don't think. Great player. Great two-way center, fast. You could talk about his attributes all you want all day, but he's not a superstar. They trade him, and I believe and Jack Drury, the center from Harvard. They trade him to Colorado. They get back Rantanen. Their goal is to sign Rantanen and make him, a big piece of their team. Probably trying to connect the Finnish Aho and the guys that have played there that like playing there. Rantanen basically says, I'm not signing here long term. So, an experienced GM could have been like, well, I don't want to look like an idiot here. I'm gonna ride this out, and he's gonna, we're gonna ride it out into the playoffs, and maybe we'll make him look bad, like he doesn't want to sign after we win or something. He didn't do that. He took a gamble, and he's just like, all right, like, I screwed up. Maybe I should have not made this trade before knowing that he will re-sign and getting that in writing. He flips him to Dallas, gets a pick, gets Logan Stankoven, who was a pretty good prospect for Dallas. Well, you're still like, I mean, me too. I was just like, what are they doing? Like, you're trading for Rantanen. He doesn't want to be there, and now you're getting less back. Like, look how good Stankoven was the entire playoffs. And now he's on an amazing deal. He's a little undersized, plays with grit, scores big goals, just, gets under the D-net. Like, he almost reminds me of, like, Brad Marchand, but not as, like, dirty. Not as, like, he's not going to, like, elbow a guy in the head or, but like he's a damn good player. So, and just the Taylor Hall move to bring him in and sign him as a veteran, and knowing that he's hungry and that he's motivated and he wants to win. He'll, all the guys on their team can skate well and just, they've made a lot of smart moves. Keandre Miller, I mean, I've said I'm a New York Rangers fan. Like, Miller had like a great rookie season with the Rangers, and sophomore season was like pretty good, and then started to struggle. Ranger fans were all like, "Oh, Miller sucks," whatever. I don't think it was Miller's fault. I think the construction of the Rangers wasn't terrific, and their defensive system wasn't great. He goes to a system like that, and he's thriving. Like, he didn't have maybe the best Cup final. If you look up Miller's stats in the Cup final game, he was okay, but the rest of the playoffs, he was amazing. He didn't make any big mistakes in the Stanley Cup final. He did exactly what he had to do. Didn't, fit right into his system. He's long, he's rangy, he could skate. Tulsky made some smart moves, man, like he has. And everything's worked. It's like a blend of like bringing in the, really looking at the analytics and what player will fit and why, and will they fit in our system, and just identifying talent. But it's also trusting and not getting rid of the guys like Jordan Staal. The Jordan Staal, it's been there for a long time, the captain. He was a beast. Like, started in Ottawa, fights Brady Tkachuk off the opening face-off, like just showing leadership. He's shut down Timmy Stützle and Zegras in Philly. He shut down Jack Eichel. I don't know what's going to happen if we're going to see if Jack Eichel was injured or not, but he really did. He kind of shut down Jack Eichel. It wasn't just Jordan Staal. Yeah. I mean, it was collectively, it was all of the Carolina Hurricanes shutting down Jack Eichel and Dorofeyev and these guys. But you gotta like tip your hat to Carolina, man. Just smart moves, and you like I've said, not to repeat myself, they're going to be looked at now in a different lens, and that brings me to when you're talking about them as a dynasty. Like, I don't think Carolina was necessarily like a destination franchise so much. I've heard of players like not, that wasn't their top choice to go there, and like, I don't really want. Look at Rantanen, he didn't want to sign there long term. I bet you now they have some cap space. You don't think a free agent wants to go to Carolina? Hey, good weather. They're a champion. Players want to win. I think now they use their cap space, and maybe they go and get somebody. Maybe they get an Alex Tuck. There's not, the free agent market's not that deep this year, but maybe they get an Alex Tuck or somebody like that. Maybe one of these players that requests a trade is like, I'll go to Carolina. Not everyone could go to Florida, right? Carolina's pretty close. And now they're a Cup champ too. So what do you got there, Rick?
No, it's great, Jack. It's everything you're saying is amazing. I actually have some notes written down for this, and I don't even need them right now after everything you're spewing at me. No, I think it kind of like puts them back on the map in a sense, right? I guess you could argue that they play that boring hockey, Carolina, quote unquote, right? That's what I've heard before with them. They're not that flashy, really. Kind of something the sexy hockey or whatever you want to call it. It's just maybe it puts them back on the map now, and it becomes a destination place. You got Brind A'mour behind the bench, like you said, not everybody can go to Florida, Carolina's close, good weather, all that stuff, list goes on and on, right? So maybe that's a thing. I like that little thing there, the Alex Tuck. That's not, I can see that actually. So one thing I want to bring up actually is the whole, I've said it before, actually. I believe I said it, not to pat myself on the back and say I called it, but I did bring up, like, the goalie rotation, the goalie depth, and it's almost like it's like in baseball with like pitchers and a bullpen and pitching rotation and stuff like that. Do you think that teams start to pivot towards like a 1A, 1B goalie? Like with Vegas, they only played Carter Hart. Like, they didn't even substitute anybody in. Carolina made the switch entering Bussy and all that when Anderson was blowing up. Like, do you think teams are starting to take notes at that? Other GMs are looking at that.
Yeah, it's a great point, Rick. So first of all, in any for any team, not just Carolina or Vegas. Goaltending it's the most volatile position in hockey. There's no doubt about that. We could probably bring up examples of teams that have won that maybe didn't have that like 1A superstar goalie, that they got hot at the right time. The goalie, and their defense covered up some blemishes for them, But it's an incredibly volatile position. There's no doubt about that. Do I think GMs are paying attention to it? Yeah, I just think it just doesn't work for every system. I think, I want to. So you look at Adin Hill to start with Vegas. I think they lost trust in him halfway through the season. They were barely playing him. They went to Carter Hart for a while, and then when Torts stepped in, he really started playing well Hart, but Adin Hill barely got a chance to play, and in the playoffs too. He didn't, even when Hart had some questionable games, and he wasn't throwing Hill in there. He was riding his horse and Hart. So like I said, it's volatile, and it's like we just spoke about with Busty. This guy's he's working at Chipotle, and he's trying to get into the AHL, and now he's a Stanley Cup champion goalie. You know what I mean? Just the margins are so slim to drag out that talent in a goalie. Sometimes all they need is that opportunity. But we all know it's the NHL, it's pro sports. You're just gonna go with the hot hand most of the time. And the Rangers, Igor Shesterkin he's incredible. He's incredible. Tampa, Vasilevsky. Do they win those cups if they don't have Vasilevsky? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. It's hard to tell. It's an odd position because it's almost do you compare a goalie to a quarterback in football? I don't know. It's, you know what I mean? Does the Patriots win without Tom Brady all those years? Probably, probably not. Is that the same comparison to a goalie? I don't know if it is, but it's a good point to bring up. I think with not Edmonton, I'm thinking about Edmonton because they've had goalie struggles, but when you look at yeah, and then but you look at Vegas and Carolina, it's Anderson was their guy for a while, but he's a starting goaltender. I wouldn't call him an elite, amazing goaltender. But Bussy played all season. Anderson got hot in the playoffs, and then it took him getting injured and struggling a bit for them to be we're going to Bussy. I think it sounds simplistic, but you got to go with whoever's hot at the moment, especially in the playoffs. I don't think it's timing. It's right place, right time with goaltenders. I think it's you're going to get your shot. Are you going to take advantage of it or not? And Bussy did, that's for sure. Carter Hart did too, to a large extent, when he came back and got a shot with Vegas. He did struggle a bit at first, but he had some tough moments in the playoffs. But overall, I thought he played very well too. And see what happens with Adin Hill. I mean, he struggled a bit in the regular season. They gave up on him, but it's kind of interesting because Adin Hill was a Four Nations goaltender for Canada, for Team Canada. This guy won a cup with Vegas already. It's kind of crazy that boom. Yeah, he struggled and they just give up on him. So I don't know everything that's going on behind the scenes, but it's kind of crazy to see him, being given up on that quickly. But yeah, Rick, I guess we'll see. But it is a good point with the goaltenders. There's no doubt about it. Just to kind of, I guess, wrap up the Carolina talk. I mean, they just won the cup. I mean, we could probably talk about them for an hour if we really wanted to, but just everything, man. They're PK. We talked about them suffocating teams. How many times have you heard us use that word, right? But Vegas 1 for 12 on the power play. Might actually be 1 for 13. Did Vegas get a power play last night? Anyway, they just they suffocated, and it's almost like Vegas started to show, in my opinion, their I don't want to say their age. I was going to say their age. It's not like they're an old team, but it's just some Carolina looked quicker at times, and Eichel looked I don't know if it's going to not defeated. I didn't see him giving up, but I seen him really just kind of taking some deep breaths and having his stick on his shin pads, I don't know if he's hurt. He could be battling an injury. He hasn't been scoring. Like, it could be something there. I think Mitch Marner got his opportunities, some quality ones. Bussy, once again, talk about Bussy, incredible saves, timely saves. Yeah, it's just an incredible series. And it was just, like I said, it was a clinical, like, Vegas tried to come at, like, I'm sure Vegas's plan was like, we're going to take advantage of them at home, and we have the upper hand. We got to get back in this thing. And Carolina just doubled down. They didn't change their game. They just, like I said, just breaking up plays with sticks and on every puck. It was just literally incredible. So I don't have too much off the top of my head that I could add about Carolina, Rick, but DeConn Smythe, Jordan Staal wins it. We were saying Marner would win it if Vegas won. I think how do you not pick Jordan Staal, though? The guy was a beast all playoffs long. I almost look, if you look, just to be X's and O's for a bit, like, you look at a guy like Shane Gostisbehere and how well he's played for Carolina. Like, that's an example of a guy fitting in like a glove to Carolina's system, right? You watch him up top, like, just like the head fakes and the passing that he, distributing the puck. Like, how much of that, like, how many points is he getting because Jordan Staal is just like blocking the goalie's vision from being able to see what Gostisbehere's even doing? Like, he's getting set for a shot, Hart, and Gostisbehere is dishing it last second to the left winger, like, but he can't see because Stahl's in front of the net, like, causing chaos. Just incredible to see him win a cup with Carolina, but DeConn Smythe as well, and very well deserved.
Yeah, it's just much more added hardware to his resume there. It's amazing, actually. Not to pivot back and forth, but I want to bring up Mitch Marner. He's still a great player, phenomenal. I still think he silenced people. I just want to bring that up briefly since we brought him up earlier. I think they just keep moving the goalposts on him now. They'll just say, "Oh, where is he in the playoffs of Game 5 and 7 in the Stanley Cup final?" That's what they're gonna say now. So, Jordan Staal, man, it's what a great career there. Won the Cup in 2009 with Pittsburgh, right? It's now Carolina. It's just, like we said, more to the resume, and it's well deserved. I think it kind of redefines DeConn Smythe in a sense. Just look at all around grit, leadership, making plays, putting pucks in the net, setting up guys, being in front, just all around great play. Instead of just leading with points or being a one-dimensional player or whatnot. So that's really all I got for right now on the Carolina talk. Jack, do you have anything else to add as we transition into some other news?
Thanks, Rick. And we'll wrap up Carolina here. I just wanted to talk about real quick. One thing I was thinking about with Carolina, just as an X factor. We could talk about the players a lot, but health. Health, I think, was one of the biggest X factors for Carolina winning. 16-3 in the playoffs, right? They sweep Ottawa. They sweep Philly. That's a lot of rest they got. That's huge. I think you close out series like that instead of playing 7-7 or 6-6. Like, they got time off. They were able to heal up and get rest. And while these other teams are beating each other up, I think that was huge. But to give Carolina's management and coaching a lot of credit too, like, how much is their health and their lack thereof of injuries, because none of their big guys were hurt, it didn't seem like. How much is that because of the way their culture is? Like, Brind A'mour, so much emphasis on fitness and just being dialed in on being fit and working out, and just, like, we know, like, probably every NHL team has standards of fitness and stuff like that, but, like, it just seems like Carolina's even more so. How much of that is, like, preventing injuries, right? I don't see what these guys are doing every day, but, like, there might be something to it. And that's some X factor. If you have a healthy squad and no one's hurt, no one's banged up, everyone's rested, and you're still playing that intense hockey, it's it's incredible. It's impressive, quite frankly. So that's really all I have left to talk about with Carolina, to be honest with you, Rick. I was curious what you think when we go to the other side, Vegas. They lose. I mean, we both picked them to win. We thought like the superstars would really shine, Marner and Eichel and Shea Theodore, who I thought really struggled actually last night. I think if he's not injured, maybe he's just fatigued. But yeah, I mean, you talk about Vegas. I just think they still have a great squad. You just wonder what they do going forward. Like, do they keep John Tortorella, or do they go after another coach? I would assume Tortorella would still want to coach them. They bring him in like the last 2 weeks of last season, and you see the job he did. I just think about Torts, and it's like, are they going to go long term with Torts? Is he their guy, or do they have someone else in mind? Maybe somebody from within. Do they have like an AHL coach they want to promote or something like that? I'm not sure. But Torts got those guys into the Cup final. It wasn't just Torts, but I think he had a helping hand for sure. It'll be interesting to see if he wants to do that, or if he wants to maybe be the guy that's on the sidelines. Like maybe he'll just be, the guy people call in March. Like, hey, my team's on the cusp of making the playoffs. They're struggling a little bit. It's a good veteran club. Does Torts come in and kind of get them into the playoffs, get them far, because he's that type of guy. But he doesn't have to be yelling at them in October, November, I'm not sure. But look, Vegas, you got to give them their flowers too. Carter Hart played very well until like the very end, and a lot of their guys played great too. That guy Dylan Coughlin, I was very impressed by. I thought he played great at times. I thought he played better than Rasmus Anderson. He could skate. He's a hell of a skater. I don't know if you watched him skate at all, but like just very impressive the way he skates, and he's able to play physical too. Brett Howden. I mean, one thing I wondered real quick with Vegas is like, you got Eichel, obviously. Hurdle at times struggled and at times scored big goals. He makes a lot of money. A lot of this season he was struggling. If Vegas plans on doing anything trade-wise, like, we'll get into Dylan Larkin in a bit. Like, is Dylan Larkin a landing spot there? Possibly. Like, now that you see Brett Howden in this, if this is the real deal and this wasn't a flash in the pan for Brett Howden, like, could they trade for Larkin? I don't know what they have asset-wise or pick-wise. I'm not looking at it now. I don't think they have a ton of picks, but or a ton of high-end prospects. But could you trade Thomas Hurdle to Detroit with something else and bring in Larkin, and that you'd have the cap space for him now? And now you have Brett Howden kind of on that third line center where he needs to be the fourth. I feel like Brett Howden probably could play up the lineup now. He's kind of proven you give him more minutes, he's going to take advantage of it. So that's something to watch for me with Vegas. But, they're still a good veteran club, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them back in the mix next year for a deep run in the playoffs, and we'll see what happens with their roster management and coaching.
Yeah, Jack, that's quite the talk there. It's really tough to just dive right into it and, give my whole analysis. And, you'd think I'd be prepared, Rick Adams, right? But can't compete with Jack Farris when he's around, when he's in the building, when he's in the PuckHouse, folks. Put me on the spot. You got to think, right? I love what you're talking about with Dylan Larkin. I actually like that trade. Frees up the cap space. Hurdle. Bump up Brett Howden. Do you even think sign a guy like Tuck, bring him back? Maybe he goes there. Yeah. Maybe something like that. That's a little reunion, yeah. That's something that you might say too. We brought it up before, like we were saying that players want to go to winning teams. Maybe you see Tuck go back to Vegas. We said maybe Tuck goes to Carolina. Who knows? It's nothing but impressiveness on I think from a coaching side, how you could kind of like get a whole team to rally behind you, and then you get so far to the final. Yeah, they had a meltdown at the end and stuff, but to make it that far, again, you got to give them their flowers as well. So, I don't see any major changes though. I think they just need to restructure some guys. You're going to see I think you're going to see a familiar face leave, whether it's Hurdle. Maybe they try to sell high on Howden now. Who knows? Maybe they're thinking it's a flash in the pan, Maybe they're like, oh, sell now while it's hot in a way. Who knows?
Yeah, good points, Rick. Yeah, I mean, anything could happen, and the Vegas Golden Knights have proven that, time after time again, when they identify a player they want, they go out and get him however they can. And it started with they did with Alex Pietrangelo back in the day, and then it was Mark Stone, and then it was Jack Eichel, and then it was Mitch Marner, and then Rasmus Anderson from Calgary. So if they want someone, they'll get him. So I'm thinking, if Vegas, we haven't fully transitioned into our Dylan Larkin talk, but I guess this is kind of us transitioning into it. If Larkin wants to go to Vegas, and they want him, as long as Vegas is like, we want Larkin and we can make it work, I feel like they would figure out a way to get it done. And he probably would be a good fit there. But yeah, you're going to have to see someone else go out the door, I think, money-wise. They still have to sign Pavel Skorofiev, too. He's a restricted free agent, so he's not unrestricted. He's not going to walk. But, does he get offer sheeted by someone? Does a team offer sheet Vegas for Dorofiev? Because, look, the guy has proven he's a, perennial goal scorer, scores big goals in the playoffs. And I don't know if, a lot of teams feel bad for Vegas, and they might not be the most liked franchise, like, when you talk about general managers. So who knows? Maybe a GM takes a swing at Dorofiev and offers him a big deal that Vegas can't match. I don't know. There's a lot that goes into that, because then does that team really want to give up a ton of picks for Dorofiev? Do they have the picks? So it gets convoluted, but I think, yeah, man, just to wrap this segment up so we could jump into Dylan Larkin, congrats to the Carolina Hurricanes. Clinical performance from this, they from October until now, 16-3 in the playoffs, proving their system works from the managerial side to the coaching side to the players, getting some luck with goaltending. Brandon Bussy's story can't be understated. Freddie Anderson gets a cup too, which is great, and he was a client of Claude Lemieux who passed away, and I'm sure that affected him. So it's good to see him win a cup, and the Taylor Hall, the Jordan Stahl, Conn Smythe, a lot of guys, just great to see those guys win. And yeah, and with Vegas, we'll see what happens. See what happens with Torts, and I'm sure they'll be back in the mix next year, because that's the Knights always move forward. So if you want to jump into Dylan Larkin, Rick, if you want to start us off.
Well, Jack, I got some questions to ask you. In some other news, we got some Babcock talk. We got some Darnell Nurse requesting trades. We could talk about Dylan Larkin. What would you like to dive in next? I think we got to talk briefly about Darnell Nurse. Makes a little high cap hit right there. Was it $8 million, $9 million? I think it's $9.25. $9.25. That's a tough one. Yeah, a lot of money. Underperformer for that level of a contract, and just it's definitely a defensive defenseman for sure. Yeah, he can slap that puck, but it's a big guy that you want around. Good to defend you. Defend your star. Donovan McNabb's nephew. Yeah. Athlete in his blood, in his genes, right? Who do you think he could land on?
Yeah, I mean, Darnell Nurse is an interesting one, because I do think he's overpaid. I mean, he's 31 years old, so he's not too old. He's still somewhat in his prime. He's a big guy. He could skate, but he's definitely had his blunders as far, like, defensively. He's minus 12, 24 points in 82 games last year, so he stayed healthy. But I just think so. I think it was Elliot Friedman that reported that Nurse last season, they were asked last season to waive his no trade, or if he would. It was more of like, hey, we're just throwing it out there. Would you consider trading? If we found a deal for it, yeah. So, and I think it offended him, but he said no. He wanted to be part of that core. They lost 2 cup finals to Florida, and then it's kind of like, all right, we got to make a change. And if they freed up that money, maybe they had something else planned. He didn't want to, but according to Elliot Friedman, I think at the end of this year, he kind of came to them and was like, you don't even have to ask me again. I kind of want out now. So And maybe with he sees Babcock coming in. I don't know. Maybe that really he's like, yeah, I'm out of here. I don't know. I just think with Nurse he is overpaid, but he's still a solid defensive defenseman. Like, you are going to have to replace him, but for cheaper. I don't know exactly who. Maybe there's a guy in their system I can't think of that they're going to take a gamble on. This whole Edmonton thing is crazy, though, because it's just, McDavid signed a 2-year extension, not even taking a raise, $12.5 million per year for 2 more years, including, next year. This is like the Olympics for Edmonton next year. McDavid wants to win in order to stay there. I think in order to keep Connor there, like, you almost have to win a cup next year. So for me, it's like Edmonton's already like a friggin' fire. Like they're already like a campfire, and like I feel like they're just throwing logs on it for no reason. Like the Babcock thing, like I feel like you're throwing a log on a fire with the Babcock thing. I mean, this guy fell out of favor in Toronto for doing inappropriate things. Fell out of favor with Columbus for doing inappropriate things to players, looking through their phones and just being kind of weird. Like he has some weird psychological like strategy, I guess, that he was kind of picking on the young players and stuff like that, and just doing weird things. That, speaking of Mitch Marner, all the Mitch Marner talk we've been doing, apparently he brought him in and said, who do you think the 2 hardest working players are on your team, and then who are the 2 laziest? And then he went out and said Mitch said that you 2 are the laziest, and like threw him right under the bus. Just like playing these weird games with him. Like, I don't know, man. I think I'm all for like second chances if someone screws up, but if you're given a second chance and you screw that up, it's like, I don't know, maybe that's the way you are, So I don't know. I don't obviously know Mike Babcock personally. I just think you could probably go a different direction. You had Chris Knobloch, who was the Hartford Wolfpack coach. Chris Drury, GM of the Rangers, let him speak to Edmonton. He goes to Edmonton 2 years ago. Knobloch was a good coach for them. Goes for 2 years. He goes to the Cup final. I mean, what else could you ask for besides a actual Stanley Cup? I don't, and it's hard for me. I guess we can't speak with too much authority. We're not in the room. We don't know what the guy's like, but he seemed like a good coach with a good background and a good, good communicator. They gave him a huge extension, and then they fire him like 2 years into the big extension. It's like, to me, and now you're going to go after Babcock. Like, I don't know. They're just kind of all over the place, and now you're trading Nurse, which I get. It's the cap. It's huge, and he has underperformed, but you got to replace him. And that's the way I'm looking at the Edmonton Oilers season coming up. It's almost like you're playing for a gold medal, because I guarantee you if they suck next year and they don't figure out their goaltending and they don't figure out their coaching and they don't figure out their defense, and it's just McDavid and Draisaitl trying to will them into the playoffs, and they don't make the playoffs or they get bounced out in the first round again, I think McDavid's going to leave. And they're going to trade him next summer, because you're not trading him. He'll be a UFA at the end of the 2-year contract. So if next year goes wrong, he's going to be traded. He's going to say, I want to go to wherever. Florida Panthers. Yeah. Wherever he wants to go. Who knows where it'll be at that point. But, he's the best player in the NHL. So they want to keep him. And I just think that they could probably be going about this a different way. I'm not a general manager, but I feel like I would take a different approach. I don't know. I mean, Stan Bowman could give Jack Farris a call. I'll give him some advice, but no. But I don't know, man. The Edmonton thing's weird. The Babcock thing, apparently he's under investigation now at the NHL in order to be cleared to coach, and they're talking to players on Columbus to see what happened and stuff like that. I'm sure I'm sure McDavid and Draisaitl and maybe like who's another leader on that team, Nugent Hopkins maybe. I'm sure they went and spoke to them. And maybe David okayed it, because I'm sure if McDavid was like, "Nah, fuck that," sorry for the language, but if he said that, I'm sure they wouldn't do it. So maybe McDavid's okaying it. But I think the problem with that is, and I've heard people say this, so and it makes sense to me too. If Babcock's gonna be a bad person to people, it's not gonna probably be to Connor and Leon. It'll probably be the 4th line player, or the assistant coach, or the equipment guy, or the security guard. You know what I mean? So, because those are the stories that came out about him in Toronto, like that he treated people poorly. Like, not even just players, like staff, nutritionists, whatever, parking lot attendants. Like that's apparently what he was, just kind of that type of guy. I don't know this for facts, but like you read this stuff and it's got to come from somewhere. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like that's not the right move. But is he a changed man at 60 years old now? And now he's, he's going to will them to a Stanley Cup, and Connor's going to sign an extension and stay in Edmonton? Maybe. I don't know. I feel like they could be going a different direction, though. That's my opinion.
No, Jack, it's excellent. I think they should pivot and do something else, coaching wise. I think it's just too much drama. I like the way you nailed that with throwing a log in an already burning fire. It's adding gas to the fire. I don't think it's necessary, to be honest with you. I think they could totally get anybody else. I'm sure it's hockey knowledge, yes, I get it, the experience and the name and stuff like that, but why drag in that drama and stuff? And now the NHL is looking at the whole 2023 team and stuff like that. It's just so much drama to unravel and stuff like that. But I think it all starts with moving a player. I think they should also start really focus. Forget the coach right now. I think the general manager needs to get his fingers dirty right here and really just trade Nurse. Maybe throw in Nugent Hopkins. I love Nugent Hopkins. I think when I think of Edmonton Oilers, of course I think about McDavid, of course, and Draisaitl, of course. But I really, third comes to mind is Ryan Nugent Hopkins. It's just, I don't know. We'd never seen him leave, obviously. Nurse, that cap hit, man. I don't even know off the top of my head. I can't even really think of like who even has enough for that. Like, does Boston take him up? Like, I have no clue, man. Like, I really couldn't even see anybody taking on that contract due to his type of play. I don't know.
Well, I got two for you. How do the Carolina Hurricanes sound? A struggling D-man. They have a bunch of cap space. He could skate. He's physical. He probably would fit right in with them, honestly. Other team I thought of, possibly Pittsburgh Penguins. Their GM Kyle Dubas is pretty familiar with his play from the Sioux Greyhounds, where he played his junior hockey. So that's a possibility, but it's a big contract to move. So teams like that could take it on. Like, Nurse isn't going to Florida or Tampa Bay or, no. I mean, maybe Toronto. Would he is Canadian, Nurse. Like, maybe he would want to go to Toronto. They might be able to. They could use a defenseman, Toronto. That's for sure. That might be a possibility, but I don't know. It's a tough one. If you want a chance to win and also be in a different situation and on a different coast, Carolina's a pretty good fit, and they can afford him. I don't know what they would give up, but that's the thing. Edmonton is looking to move him and get his cap off the books. I could see Tulsky doing something like that. Okay, we'll take him, but we're not giving you much for him. Retain, and maybe we throw you a third-round pick, but we're not giving you like a high-end prospect. Like, that's what Carolina can do because they have the cap space, because he's managed the cap so well. So he can just kind of add a player and be like, we're doing you sort of a favor to free up cap space for you and getting a player at the same time. So I could see something like that happening. Maybe a Pittsburgh Penguins team, like, maybe they do something. But yeah, we'll see what happens with that. I think even the bigger story though is the Babcock thing. So we'll see what happens with Babcock and Bruce Cassidy now that he's now that Vegas is out. Like, we'll see if they give him permission to talk to teams or if they're gonna kind of keep him under wraps because they don't want him coaching. I feel like they just don't want him coaching in Edmonton against them. I'm sure if he wanted to go talk to the Islanders or the Devils or something, like, I'm sure that he would be all right with it. But yeah, we'll see what happens, Rick. What do you want to transition into now? Some Larkin talk?
Yeah, let's talk about Mr. Dylan Larkin. We've talked about him before, earlier on this podcast before. I really do like how we talked about a landing spot as Vegas. I can see that happening. I'm not even just saying, yes, Jack, I agree. I really do see that as a realistic landing spot. I want to know your thoughts of what would it take right now if somebody, not right now, right this second, but like come the draft time. Do you think what's the asking price draft time if somebody makes a trade for Dylan Larkin?
So the reason the Dylan Larkin thing for me is so intriguing is because I think, apparently they didn't want the trade request to get out. So I think it was a strategy almost by one side or the other. So it was either Pat Brisson and Dylan Larkin, who's Pat Brisson's his agent, or Steve Yzerman. So I think, one side wasn't happy that it got out, and maybe the other side did want it to get out. What will it take to get him traded at the draft? So he gave a list of teams. The reporter in Detroit, Helene St. James, said it was Vegas, Minnesota, and Florida. So to go to one of those teams, apparently Yzerman, like a couple days later, went back and said, "Oh, you got to give me a bigger list of teams, right?" I see Larkin getting vilified in the media, dragged through the mud. He's only giving him 3 teams, and of course they're winning teams, and it's like, well, yeah, obviously. What is he going to do? Say, send me to a rebuilding team? Like one of the reasons he's leaving Detroit is because he feels that Yzerman has mismanaged the Red Wings, and he hasn't done enough to put them in a winning situation. And he's given him time. It's not like he's being crazy. It's 2 years and I'm out of here. He's been with the team for a long time. So I don't really agree with him being vilified for wanting to go to a contender. So everyone's, of course, Vegas, Florida. Yeah, they're winning teams. Now Carolina is. Maybe he thinks about Carolina, right? So I don't know. He's an American kid. He probably doesn't want to go to Canada, I would imagine. I think he'd be a great fit in Montreal, but I have a feeling he wants to stay in the United States. Hey, he's got a family, and he's from America. Like we've spoke about this before. Like I don't think players should be given a hard time for not wanting to go to Canada if they are American. It goes the other way too. I'm sure there's Canadian guys that would prefer to play in Canada. So I don't know the package that would get it done. I mean, I would honestly, the best fit would be Minnesota, but he would fit in Florida too. Playing with Tkachuk or Reinhart on his wing. I think Florida has like the assets to get it done if they really wanted to. I don't know what, would Florida's GM give up Lundell for him and the 9th pick, because they do have the 9th overall pick. Yeah. They could. I feel like that would be enough to get it done. I just don't know if that's enough for Detroit. Maybe Florida's saying, no way, we're not giving you Lundell. We'll just give you the 9th overall pick. We know he wants out of there. This is the thing. When these trade requests come out, these teams are like, we know your trade. Right. You're not in a position of power as Steve Yzerman. Yeah, and I get it from a Red Wings fan perspective. Like, hey, it's our captain. Like, we don't want to get nothing for him, and they won't. They'll get something. But my philosophy on it with Yzerman is they're like, oh, Yzerman's going to be tough on this and grind, and he may have to sit out, and like it's like, for what? Like, he's the captain. This got out. It sucks. I get it, but take some accountability as well. That it's not all on Larkin. Some of it's Yzerman's fault too. People are like, oh, he could have played better. Maybe. I don't know. He was also hurt last year for a part of the year, so you can't really judge him fully if he's injured. But a lot of people think Yzerman's way too conservative and doesn't take swings enough. And, they haven't had lottery luck either in the years they didn't make the playoffs. So I know that doesn't help either, that, they couldn't get a Macklin Celebrini or someone like that would have really helped. But I think Larkin's been patient. He's 30 years old. He wants to win. He won a gold medal. He got a taste of what winning's like. And, of course, he's going to request to go to a winning team. Like, he's not going to be like, send me to Vancouver where they're rebuilding. Like, why would he say that? It doesn't make sense. So Vegas would be, if I feel like Florida could give up more than Vegas and still be okay. I think Vegas has less assets. I feel like Florida might even have some cap space now because Bobrovsky's not going to make $10.5 million again. He's probably going to make less than that. They probably have some more. The caps went up a little bit. They have a little money to play with. So Florida's like a team to watch for me. but does he open it up and think about I don't know. People, I've heard New Jersey out there. For me, that doesn't make a ton of sense. I mean, you have Hughes already and Heischer, like, unless New Jersey really likes Larkin, is like, hey, we'll give you Heischer. But at the end of the day, Larkin has a no-move clause, so he is kind of dictating where he wants to go. And I don't see anything wrong with him giving 3 teams. If he really wanted to, he could be like, I only want to go to the Minnesota Wild, or I only want to go to the Florida Panthers. It's giving him 3 teams. So, in my opinion, like, if Yzerman's going to, like, drag this out, like, Florida's not giving me an extra 3rd-round pick, I'm not trading. Like, why? Like, you're probably not going to win the trade. You're not, you're probably not getting, you're not trading Larkin and getting back. Like, that's why the Larkin for Heischer thing to me makes no sense. Why would the Devils do that? Like, and like all I hear Red Wings fans talk about this situation. Well, we need to make the playoffs, so we need to get back. I'm like, I get that frustration, but it's also like kind of like, well, it's too bad because like he's requesting a trade, he has no move. He's going to a contender, which you're not gonna, they're not going to give you one of their top players. They're going to give you futures. They're going to be like, hey, we'll give you a prospect, a 1st-round pick, and another roster player, but that roster player is not going to be Dylan Larkin. Like, I just don't get how they don't understand that part of it. Carolina is not going to say, hey, we'll give you Sebastian Aho for Larkin. It doesn't make sense. They want to improve. These teams want to improve so they could win. So they're going to give you value in assets, but it's going to be future assets. It's probably not going to be a star for a star. Right. It does. Makes sense for either team. No. So, because that star on Florida, even if that were the case, has a no move as well and is not going to go to Detroit. So I think they have to start getting realistic and being like, all right, like, this kind of sucks. We have to depend on our young players. Larkin wants out. We need a new captain. We'll get some assets back. And, I don't know, like if Minnesota says we'll give you that Yurov guy, that, Danilo Yurov, the Russian centerman he said flashes of brilliance. I mean, he's not proven as a top-line number 1 center yet. But if him, a pick, another prospect, maybe, maybe they throw in a roster player like, Yurov is a roster player, I guess. But that maybe, I've heard giving up Wallstedt. To me, that doesn't make a lot of sense. Gustafson's hurt too, so like that you're kind of, I don't know. I think Yzerman's in a tough spot a little bit, and his best bet's probably getting future assets, another 1st-round pick out of it, another prospect, and maybe he could turn around and take that 1st-round pick he gets from Florida and trade it for another player. They could do that too. They could use the assets as currency, So, the Larkin, it's an intriguing story to watch. I am curious if he opened up the list at all, if he said, oh, I'll go to, other teams. But, it's going to be a United States team that's contending or in a position to contend. That, that's what it's going to end up being. So these people that are like, oh, it's only winning teams. Yeah, of course it is. That he wants to win. He doesn't want to rebuild anymore, So I think Florida would be a good fit. Once again, Minnesota would be a great fit. Vegas, I guess, but I just don't see them having the assets for it. But who knows? I think I brought up last podcast, Columbus would be a good fit. If he would like to go there, his boy Werenski is there. I don't know if they're really ready to win yet, though. So if he's really looking to win a cup, that's the thing with that. But yeah, we'll see, man. We'll see what happens with Larkin, but I just don't like seeing him get vilified for wanting out because I think he's been very patient. I don't think it's like the spoiled brat syndrome thing. I think he's been very patient, and he's given them a few teams, and of course they're going to be winning teams. So very, very excited to see what happens, and maybe something does happen at the draft, Rick. That's a good point.
Yeah, Jack, that was excellence right there. No, I you bring up Columbus, and it's a funny thing with them. Like they're that middle of the pack team. Honestly, it's almost like, do they take a shot at him, and is Dylan Larkin the answer to get them over that hump in a sense? That's a tough one. Does he of course he wants to play on a winning team. Does he really want to go into there like, all right, does he, all right, I know I'm the I'm the I can not carry them in a sense, but I can lead them to get them over that hump now and get them into the playoffs, and that would be a great story. With his buddy Zach Werenski there, but a team I want to bring up where it's kind of like I don't want to say a dark horse, but I mean you mentioned Columbus being a dark, and that is, and you might have brought this up before. But I could see him going to Dallas. Dallas making a move for him. I don't know cap-wise. They have to deal with the whole Robertson thing. I don't want to dive into the whole Dallas offseason stuff and Robertson, where he's going to go and make it about that. But maybe they land him. Maybe Dallas takes a stab at him, Maybe that's a guy who they can acquire, and that gets them through the next round of the playoffs. And I know they've been struggling and stuff. So, asking price-wise, like, at draft time, like you would have to think it's a top 10 pick, right? Whether it's the first, not obviously first, but I don't think he goes to Toronto and then something crazy like that. I don't think it's anything like that. But you would think it has to be like a 10th overall pick. You brought up Florida. What was it? 9th overall. Yeah, 9th overall pick, like something like that. First round pick, rostered player, obviously. Like you would think a third line, top 6, something, maybe it's just that. But you're right. Not many, Yasmin doesn't have really much leverage here. No. So it's really going to be interesting how this pans out with kind of who screws who in a sense. I hate to really put it like that, but it's really, you could argue that's what every trade is, but it's not going to be a 1-for-1 trade. It doesn't make sense. Like I saw that too with the Nico Hischier going to the trade for that one for what does that do? Yeah, so doesn't make sense to me. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I'm thinking he gets dealt by the draft. Honestly, I don't think that Yzerman's going to sit on his hands. I mean, why would he? Right. That's my logic is. Why would he? He kind of did it at the deadline, but why would he? I don't know.
Yeah, good points, Rick. And it's like going back to people like, you could like it or not like it, but at the end of the day, Larkin has a no move. He requested a trade. Larkin kind of has the hammer right now. There's times where the GM has the hammer when the player doesn't have that clause, right? It's a younger player. It's someone, it's someone that doesn't have a clause. They're underperforming. They buy the player out because they're underperforming. You see GMs be ruthless all the time with players. So I don't really understand the whole, we got to feel bad for Detroit and Yzerman and Larkin has to give him 20 teams to be traded to. I disagree. I think Larkin, as a player, should take advantage of having the power right now. And he's being reasonable. He's given them 3 teams that are contenders. And look, if it was the other way around and Larkin was underperforming and he didn't have a clause, you think Yzerman would be calling Dylan Larkin and being like, hey, like, I know you don't really like Vancouver or Canada, but, we're going to do everything you can. We got big offers from all these other teams. We're going to do everything we can, though, to just send you to Florida because that's where you want to go. No way. Yzerman would be doing what's best for the Detroit Red Wings, as he should, and getting the most assets to send him whoever offers the most for him if he, was underperforming. Or he would buy him out. He wouldn't consult with him. He'd buy him out and be like, well, you're not living up to stand, whatever. So now that Larkin has some say, it's like everyone's freaking out. It's like the guy's been patient.
Yeah, 10 years.
He's had 10 years. So I think he's not doing anything wrong, quite frankly. And I think if the best bet for Yzerman is, look, you're not going to get nothing for Larkin, but get what you can for him and move on and stop. Like, let's not drag this out for 6 months because you didn't get an extra second-round pick. Like, is that really worth it? Now you go into the season with a disgruntled captain. I don't know. I just think I guarantee there's a deal to be made with Florida that's fair, and I guarantee there's a deal to be made with Minnesota that's fair. You're probably not going to win the trade, but like I said, you take the assets, you use them as currency to get a different player for the Detroit Red Wings, a guy that wants to be there. That's what I would do. Or you take a step back and retreat and say, you know what, we may not make the playoffs again, but we got all these assets, and hopefully we have some lottery luck, or next year's free agency is better. I don't know. That's Steve Yzerman's job to figure that out. So, what I like, wherever Larkin goes, what you got to say, that's why I could see a team like Florida liking this situation for them, because you're getting a player that has skill and he's so hungry and motivated to win that he's requesting a trade from his own hometown team in Michigan. This isn't, like a Brady Tkachuk that's in Canada that wants to come to the States. Like, even though Ottawa made the playoffs and Ottawa's got a good team, I think Ottawa's done a pretty good job at managing their team, to be frank with you. But it's not a situation like that. This kid is from Michigan, played for Michigan in college, and now he wants out. So it stings the fans. I get it. But he wants to win that bad, So you're getting a really hungry Dylan Larkin in his prime. I could see Florida's GM being all over that. And maybe he is going to offer a fair package. And I'm sure he will, or he has already. It's going to be, is Yzerman going to be spiteful and drag this out because he needs an extra defensive prospect, or it's I don't know. I'm not privy to these conversations, but I would assume these teams that want Larkin are offering fair value. But if these Red Wings fans or Yzerman think that Florida is going to give you fucking excuse my language again, but do you think if you think you're getting a Sam Reinhart for Larkin, or you think you're getting it's not happening. You're going to get, if you get Lundell, you're lucky, and you're going to get some futures. So they'll probably give you the first pick, maybe a prospect that they have, or another pick. Minnesota is probably going to be a mix of picks and some younger players. So I just think that's your best bet. So that Detroit, I think, has to just accept it, take what you could get, your best offer from one of those teams, have a little bidding war between those three teams, take what your best offer is and move on, and either take a step back and hope that, maybe a Nate Danielson or one of these prospects in Detroit's system moves up and steps up. Or, like I said, take some picks and go get aggressive and go try to trade for somebody. I don't know, trade, Mason McTavish in Anaheim has fallen out of favor from could they? Yeah, could Detroit take some assets and go get him? He's not proven to be a Dylan Larkin yet, but he is a good player, and he's big, he's physical, so maybe in order to pay Leo Carlson, they're going to have to move McTavish. That could be a fit for Detroit. But you're getting a motivated player in Larkin that wants to win, is going to do anything he can to win. I think adding him in with either Minnesota or Florida, where he's with another Olympian he won with, is going to it's going to capitalize on that magic they had in the Olympics, and I would love to see that. And I guess you could make the argument, New Jersey with Jack Hughes too could be, but I just think Florida or Minnesota is a much better fit. Eichel, Hannafin, and Vegas. I personally think Florida could offer the most, or Minnesota. And they're both aggressive GMs. That's why I'm waiting to see one of them take a big swing. I just think if it doesn't happen and this drags out, it's Yzerman being bitter and saying, "Well, I didn't get an extra, I want a superstar player and 4 first-round pick." And it's and listen, I like Dylan Larkin, but he's not Connor McDavid. You're going to get what you could get for him. You know what I mean? Within reason, but you're going to get what you could get for him. It's not even Austin Matthews. But I do like Larkin as a player. He's a complete player. He's underrated. He plays in all situations. He played great at the Olympics. I get why a Detroit fan's upset, but sometimes you have to just move on. Yeah. It's like going through a bad breakup. Sometimes you're like, all right, I'm going to, the TV's mine, the nice couch is mine, but you could keep that stuff, and I'm going to go work on myself. They'll be all right. Detroit will be all right. They'll figure it out. They're a big hockey city, and they got passionate fans, and they got passionate people working there, so they'll be okay. But yeah, it'll be intriguing. I think you're right about the draft. I think you'll see movement. Deadlines usually spur movement, so we'll see. I would love to see him in Florida or Minnesota. I think that'd be a great fit. But I don't like the whole he's being vilified and he has to give way more team. It's the reason he's requesting a trade is to go to a winning team. So that's who he's going to go to. So, and people talk about Montreal, which Montreal is ran perfectly in my opinion. They have done an amazing job in Montreal, and they have a great team, and they're knocking on the door to win. I think Montreal is going to be they're going to be a champion within a couple of years. I would say. I think they're doing a great job there, from coaching to management to player development. It comes back to, does Dylan Larkin want to play in Montreal? Does he want to move his family to Canada? I don't know. Nothing against Montreal. It's a cool city. I'm just saying, like, just the logistics of, like, does he want to be in the United States? Maybe he has a kid that's in school. I don't know. So, so that one doesn't make it. It would be interesting, and it would make Montreal, like, better, and it would be cool to see. But I don't see that. That's why I'm leaning, like I said, towards Florida or Minnesota. And the other thing I wanted to add real quick before I hand it back to you, Rick, is I think it was Elliot Friedman was on Sportsnet, and I was listening to him. He was talking about, like, apparently Yzerman and Larkin haven't even spoke for over a year or something like that. Like, they don't really get along or something. You know, listeners, you can look it up to see what I'm talking about. Just search, like, Elliot Friedman, Larkin, Yzerman, whatever. Like, how is there any accountability on Yzerman? Like, where's the Red Wings fans, like, hey, this is the GM. How did you let your 29-year-old center captain? How did you let the relationship sour that badly? Like, what happened? You know, like, I'm not saying Larkin was always right, and maybe Yzerman got annoyed at times at, you know, I know he made comments about, like, Yzerman not adding at the deadline. Who knows what happened? Maybe Yzerman was sitting on his hands or being too conservative. Maybe there was no trades to be made. Maybe Yzerman was doing the smart thing. Who knows? You know, but and it goes back to, like, Detroit, unless you're from Michigan too, like, it's not exactly Nashville or Florida or Tampa or that, you know. Not everybody, I don't think it's, like, the top of the list for free agents to want to go to. So I understand why Yzerman's, like, building through the draft, but at the same time, other teams kind of have made it happen and had that turnaround. Like we spoke about Ottawa and Buffalo. They're not on the top of everyone's list for, you know, people wanting to go and play and live there, but they've done an incredible job, like, player development wise, and they're getting players that do want to be there. We spoke about Alex Tuck, like, he's from that area. Maybe we see a Patty Kane go there. Like, I think you brought that up to me the other day. Like, we'll see what happens with that. He's from that area. So not to be all over the place here, but to bring it back to Detroit, they'll be fine. They're a good franchise, big time passionate hockey city. A lot of history. They'll be fine, but I think Yzerman has to not overanalyze this and be like, I'm not trading Larkin and he's going to sit out because I didn't get an extra prospect. I don't think that's the way to go. I think you get rid of him for the best, you know, whether it's Florida giving you the best or Minnesota or Vegas, whoever it is, and you take that and you move on with your life and you keep going. And like I said, maybe you can maybe there's a trade to be made after that or something. But that is an intriguing. I wonder what caused this relationship to sour so much. Is something that I've thought about.
Yeah, Jack. No, that's great. You bring up that sour relationship there. I didn't even know about that, actually. That's interesting to see. What I guess it doesn't even matter, right? What caused it? Whatever happened, right? So you wonder, all right, does he really sit on his hands here? You know, he kind of sat on his hands at the deadline. Didn't really add anything. They missed the playoffs. Now it's almost like you gotta kind of. Don't impulsively do something, but don't also hold out. Like you said, don't be stubborn. Don't be bitter about it. Don't, it's almost in a sense like, kind of got to save your job in a sense. Don't really botch this. Don't mess this one up. Then you're entering the season with a disgruntled captain and stuff like that. That's something like I'm very curious how this plays out. And that's why I say that I'm going to make this little Rick's Picks prediction kind of, that he gets dealt at the draft. I can't see Yzerman just holding out, being a knucklehead about it. But who knows? If there's that sour relationship, maybe he's stubborn. Who knows? I don't know. Personally, I'm not a freaking hockey legend. Don't mean it in a disrespectful way. Just who knows what's going on. We're not there, folks. So Jack, you mentioned to me before, like something with Druin being traded back in the day, and he was under Yzerman in Tampa Bay. You want to touch on that real quick?
Yeah, well said, Rick. And I mean, it's maybe not a perfect comparison, but Jonathan Drouin was high-end prospect with Tampa back in the day when Steve Eisman was the GM at Tampa. And he requested a trade too because he was not making the team. He wasn't getting the minutes he wanted to. And I know that wasn't Alan Walsh was Jonathan Duran's agent, not Pat Brisson. Two different agents, two different statures of player. I understand that. So maybe not the greatest comparison, but he grinded. He waited to trade that guy. Like he waited till he got exactly what he wanted, and which is good to do. It shows that he's trying to do what's best for the Red Wings, or the Tampa Bay Lightning, whoever he's managing at the time. But at the same time, this is a different situation. Duran was a young player, did not have a no-move clause. Larkin now has some power, and like I said, when the player has the hammer, I have no problem with him using it because we see it all the time. GMs, when they have the power, they take advantage of it. So it's just like I said, Rick, this is it's a very intriguing story to follow, and we'll see what happens. And I do think at the draft would be a good time to move him. I'm sure he's getting offers. I'm sure he's speaking to Florida and Vegas and Minnesota and maybe another team we don't know about if Larkin approved it. But at the end of the day, Larkin was patient. Eisman's been the GM for about 8 years now, going on 8 years. He's had time. I don't think he's being unreasonable, Larkin. I think Eisman should just move on, get what he can, and move forward, and let Larkin move forward, and let Larkin be hungry and motivated and go to a team that's on the cusp of winning or already is a winning team like Florida that took a step back and now they're going to be healthy again next year and go back into probably a winning situation. So we'll see what happens. Wherever he goes, it'll be intriguing. Minnesota desperately needs a centerman. That's a good fit. Where, 3 teams basically to talk about until we hear more. But Larkin has the power. He has the no move, and he can and should dictate where he wants to go.
Yeah. It's funny. We went from kind of like a boring off season, not really much to talk about, and then this news broke, and now there's just plenty of speculation and plenty to talk about. Not just this, not just this alone. It's you got Alex Tuck, you got maybe Patty Kane goes to Buffalo. We've talked about. We could do so many talks, folks. We could have so many episodes in the off season, but we kind of want to enjoy our summer a little bit. So, Jack wants to add a little thing here, folks. Hold on one second.
Just before I let Rick wrap that up, listeners, I'm curious if you want to leave some comments for me, but I'm also asking you, Rick. Larkin trade, Nurse trade, but would you buy or sell on another big trade coming out of one of these teams that are not doing, like Winnipeg, Connor Hellebuck? We keep hearing him. We hear rumors about him wanting to leave Winnipeg. I don't think it's official yet. Like, do you think another player, like a big name player, requests a trade again this summer, like before next season starts, whether it's at the draft or during the summer? Is it Matthews, Tkachuk, Hellebuck? I'm leaning Hellebuck. I don't know why. I feel like Matthews is going to give it another go there in Toronto and give them a shot to see what happens. But maybe we'll see something more shocking. Who knows?
It's great that you bring up Winnipeg. Maybe Kyle Connor. I don't think it makes sense for Winnipeg to totally do it, but maybe if Hellebuck goes, maybe they part ways with Kyle Connor too. Yeah. Maybe they just totally part. Maybe they just do a total full-blown rebuild. Who knows? Honestly, maybe you see one go, maybe you see it's like a domino effect. Who knows? I don't know. Folks, that's really it. We got the draft coming up now. We're going to probably prep up for that and give you guys our insights and expert analysis on that. Like Jack said, we want some feedback, folks. It's a little quiet. Maybe I'll add some cricket noise on this. No, there's been some just no noise out there. Give us some feedback. Just don't be shy, folks. We want to hear some. What do you want us to talk about? What do you want us to cover? That's really it. Draft coming soon. We'll talk about trades. We'll talk about predictions. We want to talk about McDavid, Matthews, all these guys. We want to talk about all these folks. We're going to come back at you with a new episode coming soon. That's really all I got, folks. Rick Adams is signing off. Jack, what do you got?
Well put, Rick. And yeah, I'm signing off as well. Thank you for everyone listening, and we'll be back at you again next week. Enjoy the week, and who knows? Maybe the next time we talk to you, we got a trade. Congrats to the Carolina Hurricanes on winning the Cup.
That's it, folks. PuckHouse is out.